I'm, I'm so happy to see you, and thank you so much for having me here. You have been so gracious and so wonderful and so generous to me, and I just want to thank you all. It means a lot, and I came a far way, but I feel like I'm at home. I'd like the board to stand. I have enjoyed every moment with them. So board members, would you, I'm not going to be able to see everybody, but would you stand and let's give them a hand. Woo! It's a wonderful time for all of us to be together. And this morning, I'm going to be talking about coming home. So let's begin. There was a man in his 70s. He lived in Florida with his wife, and he called his son in New York, and he said, "Son, I don't want to worry you, but you know, the fact of the matter is your mother and I don't love each other anymore, and we're getting a divorce. And I don't want you to be shocked, you and your sister, when I move out." So he hangs up the phone. The son immediately calls his sister and tells her the news. And she says, "I'll handle this." She calls her dad on the phone, and she said, Dad, don't do anything until we get there. We'll be there Wednesday night." And he agrees and hangs up the phone, and he turns to his wife and he says, "Well, honey, they're coming for Thanksgiving." That's one kind of coming home. Some of you may be coming home for the holidays, or having family join you for the holidays. I know I am. In college days, it was traditional to give a chrysanthemum at the homecoming game. And I thought that would make a wonderful symbol for our time together, our coming home, our spiritual homecoming. So you were given a sticker when you came in, and oh, mine is gone. I need another one. Oh, boy. Oh, that's good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think it was loved off in the first service. I thought this would be, it's a symbol for me. I hope it is for you. I am home in God. Let's say it. I am home in God. I am home to God. I am home to God. So tell your neighbor, either one of those. I am home in God. I am home to God. And then look around, because what you're going to see is a whole lot of people home in God. That means there's one whole, one oneness now. And each one of us centered in that, just like St. Augustine said. That makes a lot of wonderful things possible, as each one of us are alive and awake and accept that freedom that comes with God's grace and God's expression through us. And we join together, wow, we can do some amazing things. We can create a world of peace, harmony, and abundance for everyone. Do you remember, did you see the movie Patch Adams? How many of you saw that? Isn't it a great movie? And so we're kind of celebrating the late and very talented Robin Williams. But can you picture him sitting on that bus by himself in the snowstorm? It was much heavier snow than y'all had yesterday. And he's on his way to the Fairfax Hospital psychiatric unit. And you hear Robin Williams' voice over saying, all of life is a coming home. All of life. Salesmen, secretaries, coal miners, beekeepers, sword swallowers, all of us, all the restless hearts of the world, finding their way home. And he goes on in his narrative to say that he felt so small. He felt like he was walking in snowdrifts, and his legs felt so heavy. His shouts disappearing into the wind. He said how far away home seemed to be. He said, in the middle of the journey of my life, as Dante said, I had lost the right path. But he said, I would find it again, and in the most unlikely of places. And he found it in that psychiatric unit at Fairfax Hospital, because what he learned in coming home to himself was that he had a gift for making people smile and laugh. And he brought that laughter and that joy to his medical practice. And as you probably know, in 1971, he, along with a number of friends, founded the Gesundheit Institute. That's a great name, isn't it? And it is dedicated to a marvelous oneness mission statement. It says that individual healing cannot be separated from the healing of the family, the community, or the world. He found his way home. And he is a home for many people on the planet because of that. I invite you to feel that with me, what that word means to you, because it's a very spiritual idea that we'll pursue a little bit this morning. I asked my son, I have 2 children, and I said, honey, what does home feel like to you? And so he told me a story, and the story that he chose was when he was in undergraduate school at the Art Institute of Chicago, a very, very cold Chicago, and I had gone there for Parents' Weekend, and I was being a mama, you know, even though my children are grown, you're always a mom, right? And he looked so thin to me. We had all become vegetarians, so he'd lost 30 pounds, and he doesn't really need to lose anyway whatsoever. And of course, the mom that I am took him directly to the breakfast buffet, where he ate a lot of food, and I felt better. I felt better. And I went home, and a couple months later, he called me and he said, Mama, he said, I think I've gotten the good out of the Art Institute of Chicago. I think I'd like to come home. And I said, honey, that would be wonderful. Because with my children, I wanted them to follow their guidance, not mine, their agenda, what's in them to express. And so he did. He came home. So he said, but Mom, I want to tell you what it feels like at home. It feels like love. It feels like security. It feels like light. It feels happy, joyful. And I said, thank you, honey. I'm going to use that in my lesson on Sunday. This home that we all know, we may associate it with one another, with a wonderful board, with Reverend Bob, who's an old friend of mine, with Reverend Jan, with Judy. But at the heart of that is our oneness, is our unity. And that's a reality. And it's so inspiring to share that with one another. Jesus talked about home as a spiritual concept every time he referred to the kingdom of heaven, or the kingdom of God, or in one translation, the kingdom of unity, which I thought was wonderful, over 140 times in the Gospels. He wanted everyone to hear there is a wholeness that joins us together. He wanted everyone to turn. That's what he said. Turn to it. That's all you have to do. Come home to it. Be awake to it. Allow it to be you as you. Isaiah, in the book of Isaiah, describes what this world can look like and will look like as those of us who are home in God and awake to God's love through us create a new earth, as Eckhart Tolle says. And we can do that if we're at home, if we're home together. So being at home may not, Jesus had to describe it in parables, but we know how it feels, don't we? We know how that feels. Well, I thought that it would be fun to have a spiritual tool this morning that was on the memorable side, besides this one. And so I thought, well, you know, I have navigation on my car. Thank God I have navigation on my car. because, as I told the first service, I am one of those people that really, you could explain north, south, east, west to me all day long, but I just want to know, do I turn right or do I turn left, right? But now that I have what I call the Godmobile, that's another story. I always call my car the Godmobile. It has navigation in it, and it talks to me. And when I get where I'm going to go, it says, you have arrived at your destination. Oh, those are thrilling words, right? I'm home in God. You have arrived at your destination. Well, looking up GPS, I found that it stood for, which I didn't know, Global Positioning System. And the government developed it, and now, of course, we're using it everywhere. But it's designed to answer 5 questions. Where am I? Where am I going? Where are you? What's the best way to get there? And when will I get there? And I thought, wow, I could apply that to my life. That's great. And so I thought, a spiritual GPS, we have an internal system that guides us because we are God positioning systems, aren't we? We are God positioning systems. I thought 4 tools this morning that you all practice already, but that are so important, are at the heart of my ministry. Meditation, intention, commitment, and compassion. Meditation has been called by Judy Canado God's self-communication. God's self-communication. Discerning that is a bit of a learning curve for most of us, because we live in a very busy world, and the stimuli that, even at the gas station in California, I don't know if you have that here or not, you can't even pump gas without a television talking to you or seeing a commercial. We have all that going on around us, but it really is possible through mindfulness to be at home wherever we are. Meister Eckhart said, God is at home. It's we who have gone out for a walk. And Maya Angelou said, I long, as does every human being, to feel at home wherever I am. We do, don't we? So meditation allows us to do that. We learn how to separate our identity from the thoughts that flow through our minds. We learn that we don't have to believe those thoughts. We can watch those thoughts. We can allow them to pass through us. We can feel the feelings, and we can allow those to pass through us. And what we discover is that we are grounded in home. We are awareness itself. And that is an amazing and wonderful discovery that we learn. And with that awareness, of course, is our oneness, our wholeness, right now. I was fortunate to mostly grow up in Unity. And when I was 10, my mother came home very excited. She had been going to the Methodist church, which is lovely. But there was a new church opening up downtown Cincinnati, and it was called New Thought Temple. And she went to the church with some of her friends, and she was so hooked. That was it. That was it. And she came home and she told us about it. But the spiritual leader at the time was E.V. Ingraham, and I invite you to Google him sometime. He was a lecturer, an early lecturer. He knew the Fillmores. He had come to Cincinnati. He's one of the earliest Unity ministers. He wrote Wells of Abundance. He wrote The Silence. And he became a family friend. He would have dinner with us. And one night, he was in his 70s and I was about 11. He said, Nancy, there's nothing more fascinating than hearing God's thoughts. I thought, wow, I want to do that. I want to discern God's self-communication. And that was the start for me of being inspired to practice meditation, and I know you do that. The second part of our internal GPS is intention. Without that, we don't move forward. We must bring our focus to what Lynn McTaggart calls a purposeful plan to perform an action with a desired outcome. It's a great definition of intention. You all have an intention here. We have an intention to create a better world for everyone. A world Isaiah described in peaceable kingdom. That intention, as we hold it individually and collectively, becomes a very powerful, powerful force. Because what are we using? We're using our divine power. And if we're committed to that, which is the third element here of our GPS, if we have committed ourselves to being present, to being awake, to being at home in God, and to engaging with others in doing that, we are, as Myrtle Fillmore said, we're helping God. We're here helping God. Jesus had his own GPS, spiritual GPS, and it's called the Greatest Commandment. And in Mark chapter 12, verse 28, we read that he was asked, what's the greatest commandment? And he quoted Deuteronomy. He said, well, the first commandment is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord with all your heart and soul and mind and strength. But he didn't stop there. He added his second commandment. And he said, and the second is like it. The second is, love your neighbor as yourself. When we get to the heart of the matter, love is in fact the way home. Love is in fact the way home. So when we commit ourselves to those elements, we can do perhaps as the people in East Germany did. I want to relate a story to you that was in Judy Canato's book. The book is called Field of Compassion. I highly recommend it. It's so wonderful. In East Germany in the 1980s, a small group in the basement of a church decided to meet to engage the question, what will Germany look like in 1,000 years when the Berlin Wall falls? And they sat with that, and they meditated with that, and they brought forth divine ideas around that idea, and they had so much fun doing it, being home and God together, that they decided to meet again. And then other groups heard of them, and they started meeting in other church basements all over East Germany, engaging, meditating, intending, committed to what their vision of unity and reconciliation was in Germany. How will Germany look? What will it be like in 1,000 years when the Berlin Wall falls? And then in 1987, things began to change. Things began to move. Things began to shift. Gorbachev announced perestroika. Poland pushed out the Soviet Union. One event led to another. And on November 9th, 1989, the Berlin Wall fell, much earlier than 1,000 years. What an amazing and inspiring story for a we. This we, today is not so much about me as it is about we. We, what we are doing awake and alive as that Christ presence. And finally, compassion. The Dalai Lama said that kindness is the radicalism of our time. And someone else said, an unknown author said, the next evolution for mankind is for man to be kind. I liked that so much, don't you? We are living in a new way. We are living with regard to all life. We are living in regard, knowing that all of this is one whole and that we are one. Everything we do, every small action of kindness affects the whole. You and I, we are powerful to uplift all those who are not yet at home, well, they're at home, but awake to being at home in God. And through our commitment to kindness as a way of life, that is powerful. It's people can feel it from you, even very far away. I'm going to close with a story this morning, a personal story, because I want you to know me a little bit, at least. My husband, on Valentine's Day of 1995, he made his transition. He had a massive heart attack. I was not with him. It was very difficult. We have 2 children, and I say we, even though he wasn't their biological father, he was father to them. He was a wonderful fathering presence. After he died, we were all struggling. It was very hard, very difficult. As you know, if you've lost a loved one, that someone with whom you were one, right? That you were connected. My son was 16 at the time. He was in high school, and he was in total despair. And that's very unlike him. He's very, very centered, kind, a sunny personality, engages with people easily. But after Bob died, he just was so sad. And he loves art, and today he does, instead of art, he makes films and commercials. But he wasn't even doing that. He wasn't drawing. His drafting table was empty. And soon I got calls from the school telling me that he had cut classes. And I thought, oh my goodness, he's never done that in his whole life. I myself was struggling to lift myself up, to be at home. And I sat down with the intention to discern God's self-communication regarding my son, whom I love so much. And as I sat there, I was able to reach a still point. And I heard these words, not an actual voice, but they resonated in my heart. This is my son. This is my son, Spirit said. You don't have to carry this yourself. He is centered in God. He is the center of God. And I felt this burden drop off my shoulders, for I had forgotten my oneness. I thought I had to do it by myself. I felt like Patch Adams. I felt that home was far, far away. And here it was, right here. So I wrote him a letter, and I put it on his drafting table. I think he still has it. And I said to him, the only part I do remember is, I said, you are God's son, and you are just like your father. It was a great turning point for us. We were lifted, we were uplifted, we were home. We got through that time, and by the end of his junior year, he was escorting one of the homecoming court to the homecoming game and the homecoming dance, and he was back to his art. And he received a scholarship to the Art Institute of Chicago, which, as you already know, he did not fulfill because he came home. What a wonderful lesson that was to me, to know that in every moment we are not limited to aloneness, because we are all one. We have all oneness. This morning I invite you to join me. Together we can do great things as we are guided, inspired, and transformed by love. We will create a world of peace, harmony, and abundance for all. God bless you.